So I have this GitHub repository here for the bootcamp, and this is where I've been keeping the source code for all the lectures so far. So if you click src directory, all the HTML, CSS files are here. And I want to use this as though it's an open source project so we can contribute to. So that's what we learned to do today. So in the previous lecture, we learned how to use the Git program to version control a project so that over time we can see and track the changes in software source code changes. Then we learned how to push that source code repository to GitHub. And we created our own GitHub repository and synced with the one we had locally. Today, we're going to learn how to help on other people's repositories. And before I do that, let me give you another overview of GitHub again. Like I said before, github.com is like the social media for source code and developers. Basically, imagine when you're Instagram, you're looking at people's pictures and commenting on them. When you're GitHub, you're actually looking at other people's source code and programs, and you can comment on them. You can report bugs, request new features. You can even propose changes to the source code so that if you like to build certain feature for software that you like, you can actually propose that. So it's a very powerful thing. And there's a lot more to it than just that as well. So if you go to github.com/explore, you can see many of people's repositories. For example, if you're interested in the Visual Studio Code, which is the text editor that I use, you can search here at the top. And it's actually an open source uh, repository from Microsoft. And you can actually look at the code for Visual Studio Code here. These are all the files. If you click the issues feature, you'll see all the issues, which is basically people can report bugs, request new features, etc., etc. There are many tags that you can add to an issue to kind of be more specific about what that is. And you can click any one of them to read the description. So this is the title here at the top. This is the description. And I'm telling you that because in the previous bootcamp, people were confused. I told them, can you create a GitHub issue with this title and this description? And they didn't know that this is the title and this is the description. So that's what it is. Anyway, you can see a timeline of what's going on here. They added the labels and who's assigned to this and other stuff there. So this tab pull request is basically proposing changes to the source code. So you can see here people have been proposing changes. If you click one of them, there's a title, just like issues, and a description of what the change is. So when somebody's proposing a change to somebody else's source code, you got to make sure to be specific and describe what you're doing. And also, usually it points to an issue that already exists that it's tackling. This one doesn't seem to do so, so it's not very good on that front. But you can click this tab, Files Changed, and you can see the before and after of their changes. So that's what they're proposing. It's a lot of stuff. Now, obviously, these are just proposals. Doesn't mean that it will be merged into the actual code base. So that's up to the maintainer of the project to do. The maintainer will decide whether to accept that or not. And you can see here there's been a reviewer, somebody who took a look at the code and approved or not. So this person here approved, it seems. So it's actually going to go in. But if you scroll down here, there's also this nice feature that you usually see in pull requests, which is some checks that are run. And this has to do with continuous integration and deployment, CI/CD. And basically, every time you propose changes to the code, you can set up some tests to be run and check if what you're proposing is like doesn't have any bugs, any problems at all. Seems like one of them failed, which is this code OSS check that you can click details and learn more about that. All right. But nevertheless, you can always add comments here and participate in the discussions just like you do in social media. But enough of that. That's the overview of GitHub in a nutshell. There's other features that we'll see later. I want to go back to this repository here for the bootcamp. This is where I have my README and the source code. So if I click issues here, I have a bunch of issues to do that I would like. And one of them is this one, teach Git and GitHub, which is assigned to me. So when you got an issue, you can be assigned to it through this part here. And basically, this is what I'm doing right now. So if you want a different view of this, typically when you work in a company with a team of other people, you're gonna see typically a Kanban board like this. If I click projects, I have this board that I created here. It's public for you. If you don't see it, let me know. I'll paste the link. So basically, we usually have a to-do column, in progress and done, then there could be other extra columns. Basically, you would have add a lot of issues here from many different people that are assigned to it. Right now, I have this issue, teach Git and GitHub, that's assigned to myself. So typically, we have what's called the stand-up meeting that we do nearly every day of the week. That you're gonna state what you did, what you've been doing, what you're gonna do next to your whole team as a whole. And then that way, like the manager looks at this and they know who is working on what at any point in time. They just can reference this board. Okay, so my teach getting GitHub issues have been dragged to in progress. So before that's usually to do. So you're gonna have a bunch of items to do that you can add here. You can either click here to add, and if you know the number or name, let me see if I type anything, it comes up. No, if I type one, there you go. If I type, there's all stuff here, but there's another way of adding issues there. So basically, you move to in progress when you start doing that, and then once you're done, you move to done. Okay, let's pick an issue to work on. So if you're interested in, I'm going back to the list of issues. So if you're interested in contributing to open source, or if you're working in a company setting, you're gonna have a repository of the thing of interest. In this case, this one. And then you're gonna go to issues, or it could be also offloaded to another website like Jira from Atlassian, or some other service for item tracking and task lists. But anyway, so you're gonna find something you want to work on. If you are working in a company, you probably already know what you're gonna work on because it's been assigned to you beforehand. Maybe you met with the manager and said, "Hey, I want you to work on this project this quarter." And this is the epic with all the things we got to do, the business requirements. And from there, you can build and create new issues accordingly. If you're working in the open source setting, like you have somebody else's project that you admire and you would like to contribute in any form, you would go here to their repository and issues, and then you're going to pick one to work on. For example, I have this add footer to the index page. I'm going to have a look at the title and description to understand what it means. So basically, I gotta add a footer to the index page. I think I can do this. So if you're working in a company, obviously you can just assign yourself and start working on it right away. However, if you're working somebody else's project and you don't have permission to it, what you're gonna do is you're gonna say here in the comments, "Hey, I would like to help out with this issue. Could you assign me?" And then you're gonna comment. And once you comment, the other person, the maintainer, now let me assume the role of maintainer, will look here and say, okay, I think this person can help. So I'm going to click here and choose their name. And it's important to comment first, because if you don't comment, I would like to help, the maintainer won't be able to see your name here. So the moment you comment, your name will automatically be available for assignment. So that's why you got to comment. And another reason is, what if you got multiple people that want to help, and who are you going to assign to? So usually you probably want to take the first come, first serve basis, right? And on that same topic, I want to point out, make sure that you don't start on any work before you get assigned, because that might cause a lot of problems. For example, let's say I like this issue, but I never said I wanted to help out, then I immediately submit code proposed, change this. But then I was never assigned to do it. How is the maintainer of the project gonna know that you wanted to do it? And what if somebody else did the same at the same time? You're wasting a lot of effort, multiple people doing the same thing at the same time. So that's very confusing. And what do you want to do first? Before you work or anything, first make sure your name is assigned to the task. So that's a very important thing. All right, so once you got your name assigned, and my name is here, you can start working on the feature. If you have like that kind of Kanban board, you can click here on the projects and you choose the board. I have many, so I think this one is the one I created just now. And if I do that, I can change my from to do here and then other stuff that I don't really care about right now, but there's priority, size, and so on. And you can choose a state here. Let me keep it that way because I want to look at the board from a different perspective. So I'm going to click this projects tab and go back to the board here. So I can show you that it's been added to do column here. And what I want to do is drag and drop to in progress because I've started working on this feature. Okay. And if I go back to that issue, make a note that's the issue number 2. Okay, every issue has a number. This one is number 2. So right now it's in progress. You see here. Now, great. I gotta take this source code. Usually you probably don't have it in your computer, so you gotta clone it. Now the problem is if I go here and click code, copy this SSH, and I'm gonna do the git clone operation. It's basically downloading the code. You probably don't have permission to change this if you're working on an open source setting. If you're in a company, it will have permission. All you gotta do is clone the original repository. That is fine. And then you can push or send new changes to that without any extra permission. Now, if you're working in an open source setting, you don't have permission to that. So what you got to do is make your own copy of the source code. And that own copy is called a fork. Okay, so a fork is a feature from GitHub, not Git. So keep that in mind. So what we got to do here, you notice this is my organization, MBK Tech World. And this is the owner of this repository called Full Stack Web Dev 3. Now, I got to create my own personal copy to work on that, assuming I play the role of an anonymous person, right? Like some other random user on GitHub that wants to contribute to this project, like you. So I would go here, okay, I got to make my own copy. So I click fork, see that fork? Click that. And it's going to ask you, okay, where you want to fork? I want to fork to my personal account. This is my personal username. And I choose the same name so it doesn't create any confusion. And create fork. And GitHub behind the scenes will do many Git operations to basically create a whole new repository and copy all the commits and all the history. And then it's going to place that under a new owner. If you notice at the top here, now the owner is my personal account, MVK Hope. Okay. With the same repository name. And if you notice this thing under the name here, it says forked from this MBK Tech World / Full Stack Web Dev 3. And that means I have a copy of that original one. And if I want to go to the original one, I just click there. But you got to be aware where you are. Whenever you're looking at GitHub, make sure you know where you are. Look at the owner and look at the repository name, always. This is the original. If I want to go back to my copy, this is the one under my username. Okay, once I got that, I can finally clone this, which is basically downloading the source code. And like I said in a previous lecture, you can do HTTP or SSH. SSH, I taught you how to do the SSH key, so you can work that. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to go to a terminal. Let me share my terminal here. So I'm in a directory here. So basically, I like to create my file system structure with this git directory / my username. And this is to mimic the GitHub username structure. This is the GitHub owner. So that way I don't confuse with MDK Tech World, the other one. So I'm going to do git clone and copy the whole thing there, which is usually git@github.com / your username / name of the repository.git. And once I do that, and I dir or ls on Mac and Linux, I should be able to see into Full Stack Web Dev 3 here. So I'm going to cd to that. I'm going to do cls to clear the screen. And as you see now, I'm in the directory full stack web dev 3 under my directory NBK Hope. And there's a reason I always do like this to mimic GitHub, so I don't confuse with the other one, because I just happen to have the original. If I go to this other tab, and the original is under MBK Tech World, so I create a separate directory for that. So I even though they have the same repository name, it's a different top level directory there, so I don't confuse. Anyway, going back to my copy here, I'm gonna open Visual Studio Code. And let me see. Share. I think this one, right? Okay, so here's my copy, my fork. And here are the files. So this right now is synced with the original. So I can start doing my work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Control tick, back tick to open a terminal here. And I'm gonna first create a branch because, like I told you in the previous lecture, right now we are in the default branch. We could be master or main, and it's the main timeline of changes. But that timeline is supposed to be clean and free of problems and issues. If I start working on something right now, like as a draft, and it's gonna probably introduce a problem or bugs to the main timeline. So I want to branch off to a different branch that's called a feature branch and do my work there. That way the default branch is always isolated from that. So git checkout -b, and then you name your branch. And yeah, I can use this at header to index page. I'm using the PowerShell, so it has this auto completion AI thing. Basically, I'm going to create a branch, and this is the name. Like I said, I use lowercase separated with a hash. And if I do get branch again, the star is now next to my new branch name. So I am safe to do my work, make commits, and master or main branch will not be affected at all. Let me open CMD so it's simpler. There's no auto completion. Okay, so I'm going to start doing my work after creating my feature branch off of master, the default branch. So I need to go locate, remember the task is to add a header, right, to the index page. So I'm going to locate the file that I want to work on, index.html under src. I think locate the body. You recall everything that the user sees is between the body, open and closing tag. So at the beginning, I'm going to add a tag header, close the tag header, and this is where I'll add the site title. I don't have one, so I just write site title like that. And if you want to include that in the div or some generic thing you can do, but that's okay for now. Or was it, let me see if I'm doing the right task. Let me just check if it's not the footer. Hold on. Because that AI thing might have misled me. That's why I don't want to trust it. Let's go back and we always have to check back on the task we're doing. Sometimes we forget. So go to the original issues. You can filter by yourself here. Assign, where is it? Assignee me. And it's footer, not header, right? So I just made a mistake. I was misled by the AI on creating the branch name. So actually footer, not header. Footer section to the bottom of the document. Okay, now that I double check that, I'm gonna go back and fix my problem. Let me see. It's supposed to be footer, and it's at the bottom of the document. Site footer. Usually there's a copyright message, right? Copyright, some year, site title, or something like that. I'm gonna move this, cut that, move it down before the end of the body, put it here. And this ampersand copy semicolon is just an HTML like kind of entity code that if you want to display the copyright sign, which is a C with a circle, you can do like this. Ampersand, the name of the symbol, and semicolon to finish it off. I'll show you what it looks like in the preview. Control Shift P, live preview, show preview, internal browser. And you see the copyright symbol there. It could be, you could make many symbols like GT is greater than. So you can see greater than there. LT is less than. And it appears there. Otherwise, how would you type the less than, right? Because it's interpreted as something special in HTML, like a tag when you're going to write the tag. So that's why you want to use that instead. Anyway, that's the entity. If you want to know more about that, it's called HTML entities. You can look that up. So I added that. We need to add some CSS to make it pretty. But before I do that, let's practice committing. And I'll do it the terminal way, like we've always done ever since the previous lecture. And I'll show you the graphical way through Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to do get status in the terminal. I see something's modified, right? So I'm going to do get diff to see what changed. And I can move with my arrows in the keyboard to see what changed because it's too small, the window here. And if I want to quit that, it's Q, okay? So basically, I have the header site title, which is wrong because I didn't save the file. Let me save the file and try again. Git diff. I saved the file now. I should be able to see footer there. There you go. Q to quit. So I'm going to git add index.html. Remember, always two-step process. First you add, and that's under src directory. So I got to say src/. And git status again. I've modified src index.html has now been added to the staging area. Changes to be committed. Now I can finally commit. So I git commit -m. So add footer to index page. You want to describe what you did. And that's nice. That's one commit right there. And if you want to do git log to see what you did, what's the history of this repository, you can see I just added that commit. Great. Now, let's add some CSS here. I'm going to add a class called site footer. And this page, I think there's a link to index.css, but I know that for sure that I want to have this kind of footer in every single page. So I'm going to create a new CSS file that's going to be global to every single page so that whenever I need that for any kind of page, I'm going to use that. So I'm going to create global.css. And I'm going to add the class.site footer. And let's add some padding, 16 for now. Background color of, let's say, light gray. How about that? Just for starters, we can calibrate with the dev tools later. And to link that file with the index page, we got to go and locate the head of the document. Remember, HTML document has two sections, right? Has the head and the body. Let's go to the head. Right before the end, we want to add the link to rel attribute, style sheet, and then href is going to be global.css, the file name relative path. And that's a self-closing tag, so you don't need to add a closing tag there. Okay, I would like to put that before my index in case I need to override anything. Great. Now, if I scroll down, you can see now the footer is kind of grayish with some padding surrounding the content. So you can calibrate that to your Hodge content using the dev tools and then copy it back to global.css. Okay, great. We did that work. Now, how do we do commit? Well, follow the same process, git add, git commit. Now I'm going to show how to do that visually. If you go to the extension, to the source control section of VS Code, here in the sidebar, there's the icon of these circles. And this is basically, if you, that icon is basically the main timeline and a branching off like I showed you yesterday. So you're going to see basically the get status visually, graphical. So you're going to see some things were changed here. If I click this one, I see I added the file global CSS. If I click the other one, I can see the git diff. I added this. All right, so what you're going to do is to git add, you're going to press the plus next to the file. So if I want to add index, I press plus to stage the changes. If you want to git add global, you can also plus that to stage the changes. And if you notice, I can always git add multiple files. There's no harm in doing that. It doesn't have to be just one. So now that it's been staged, you can further confirm that that's really what you want. There's no errors. Okay, now when you're ready to commit, what you got to do is click here, this message text field, and describe your change, style the footer for the index page. And then you click commit, and that will call git commit. Okay, so this is the graphical way if you feel comfortable using that. But I have to teach you the original way, which is actually what's happening behind the scenes, right? This graphic is just a front for what's really going on with the git status, git add, and git commit. Okay, I think my work is done. Now, what do we do? Well, now that your work is done, you can send that to GitHub so you can git push origin and name of your branch, which is wrong, right? It should be footer, but anyway, AI misled me. And now it should be on GitHub. So basically, when I did the git clone to download the repository, it already automatically sets the remote called origin. So if I do git remote -v, I have origin here set to that with the fetch and the push. What I did just now is git push to the origin remote my branch. So I push my branch. So if I go to GitHub, let's see here, Firefox. Let me open a new window. So I go to github.com/my username/fullstackwebdev3, which is my fork. I should be able to see my branch if I go to branches. Let me look up here, right here, branches. Click that. And this is like the graphical equivalent of git branch command. You see there's the branch here. If I click that, I can browse the files in the branch. And you see this branch is 2 commits ahead of the original master branch. If I verify the files, I will see there's a global.css like we did add. Okay, that's great. So I sent the code to GitHub. How to propose changes to the original? You see this yellow banner? That's pretty much the quickest way to do that. Click compare and pull request. Or the other more manual way, you can go to pull request and then start a new pull request and set up the different stuff. Anyway, click here. Let's verify this. So I usually read from right to left when I read this part here. So I want to do my branch, add header to index page. That's from my owner, right? My repository copy. And I want to merge that into the master branch of nbktechworld/fullstackwebdev, which is the original branch. Okay, so it has to be like that, right? Because you want to propose changes to the original. The original is nbktechworlds 1. So you want to give a title that's very descriptive and concise of what you did. So add a footer, not header, to index page. And then you would go further adding more description about this. This one's a very simple case, but usually you would say things like add some screenshots to be so people are. It's basically you want to make the other person who's going to review your code. You want to make their job as easy as possible and less painful. So the more descriptive and visual with screenshots and videos, the easier it will be for them. Otherwise, they gotta take a long time to figure out what you did and all this stuff. So you want to say like, describe what you did. If you consider alternatives and that didn't work, describe that. Add some screenshot videos, and then describe what to do in case something goes wrong. You can say if this goes wrong, you gotta just do this and that and all this stuff. Anyway, add a footer to the index page with some basic CSS styling. If you want to start a discussion, you can also start it here For example, you're not sure about the color or something. You can say, like, I'm not sure about this color, and you can tag someone. What do you think about this color? Should I change to something else? And you can start discussion, just like social media, and you can leverage the comments as we'll see in a bit. But basically, do that, create pull requests. And once you do that, you can start a conversation via comments here, and you can tag people with @ and their name. I chose the light gray color for the background of the footer. Is that okay? Or you want a different color? So you can start a conversation there. And it's going to be here. The person will be tagged. Obviously, I tagged myself, but I'm playing a role. If you go to this part of reviewers, usually that is usually automatically assigned, depending on how you have everything set up. So somebody would be assigned to review your project here. Otherwise, you would have to go, for example, if you're in a company, you have to ask around, maybe in the chat room, hey, I just finished, here's a pull request, could anybody review it? And then we'll go there and start reviewing it. So you can verify the commits. This checks is basically the CI/CD. And then files change is everything you change. What's great about GitHub is you can look at the files change and you can actually comment on every line. And for example, why did I add global CSS? Maybe the person who's reviewing my code doesn't understand why. And I want to be preemptive and right here. I added this global style sheet because I think the footer will appear in every single page the same. So that avoids us having to copy and paste the same code for every single different style sheet file specific to a page, something like that. And then add single comment. That way, the person who is going to review the code will be aware of what you did, what you're thinking. Okay, so once you do that, there'll be somebody like a reviewer. Let me play the role of reviewer. So I would come here. Okay, I read the title. Okay, add footer to index page. Add footer index page. This one is very simple, but there's one detail here that I didn't mention. In the real world, in practice, there will be many issues, and you cannot possibly keep track of them all. You have no idea what's going on if you just put out some pull request out of nowhere without tying that to a specific issue. So what you got to do is specify the number of the issue here in the description. For example, resolve number, whatever. So you have to add that. So that as a reviewer, that's the first thing I noticed here. And then, okay, add footer to the index page. Sounds good. And I would look at the files. Okay, this has been verified. Good. Somebody commented, oh, why did they do this? Oh, okay, makes sense. Okay, makes sense to me. So we can move on from there. Okay, looks great. And then you can leave comments if you want. So I finished my review and I say, okay, everything looks good, but could you link the issue number so I know exactly what you are solving or addressing? So I would do that. And then playing the role of the person who proposed the changes, I would say, read the comment. Okay, makes sense. So I would go here and edit my thing. And usually at the beginning of the description, I would say resolve space hash, and which is the issue number 2, right? And when I click update, it should be linking that to this pull request. If you hover over that, you can understand, oh, this is resolving that specific issue. And then here in the sidebar, it's also linking to a pull request. If you click the issue, it will know, okay, on the right-hand side, that's successfully merging a pull request may close this issue. And if you go there, that's the associated pull request. So that way they're linked together. And the benefit is of this resolve thing is also when you finish the issue and click close, it will automatically move For example, in the board, it will move from in progress to done without you having to manually do it. Okay, so once everything is ready, so we gotta do what's called the merge operation, which is basically integrating the changes into the repository. Now that will vary depending on how we're working. It could be the person who proposed the changes to merge, or it could be the maintainer of the project that will merge. If you're working in a company, you could merge yourself. If you're working on somebody else's, you have to wait for them to do it for you because you don't have permission. But yeah, typically there could be some process there to deploy first to verify there's no problems before you merge. So you have to be aware of that. Depends on how the company approaches the stuff. For example, for me, in my case, when I work in a previous company, we would first deploy this feature branch to validate if it's actually working and there's no problems. And once we verify there's no issues is when we would actually click to merge, okay? Other companies might do the opposite. They might merge right away and then they will verify, and if there's issues, they will backtrack, which I don't really recommend, but that's just the way people choose to do things. Anyway, I think this is all good. Let's assume I deployed and everything looked great. And I am the maintainer, so I have to merge here, click merge, confirm. So now these commits have been integrated into the original, which is this one. So I can click commits here and I see my two commits here, add footer and style the footer. Okay, that's great. But now we have to clean up. So you notice here, I have my branch. So usually you want to delete that because I don't need it anymore. So I can delete from here. And I have to go to my local and start the cleanup process and synchronization. Because if you go back to the fork, my fork, let me go to my fork here. GitHub.com/mbkhope / full stack web dev 3. This is my fork. You see this branch is behind. So we are out of sync now. So let's clean up. So go local. So VS Code here in the terminal. What we got to do here is first, let me go here. So if you look, right now we have no way of synchronizing with the remote from the original. So we have to add that, and that's usually called the upstream. So let's take one step at a time. First, I need a way to get the changes that were integrated into the into the original. Now, keep in mind what I'm doing right now. There could be different ways to go about doing this. Obviously, you can merge it because you did the branch here. You can merge that into your master and then sync. That's fine too. But let me do it syncing from the original. So what you're going to do is get a remote add, and we call it upstream instead of origin. And then you got to copy the URL from the original. So let's go to GitHub here. So from your fork, you can click to go to the original. There you click to copy the URL. I'll do SSH. And going back to my terminal, I paste that. Make sure it's the original, okay? I look at MBK Tech World. That's not my copy. It's the original one. Enter. If I do git remote-v, I should see 2 for upstream. Now what I'm going to do is going to fetch the changes from upstream. So I'm going to git fetch from upstream master branch. Now I got those changes. Now I got to update my master. So I'm going to locally git checkout to master, because right now I'm not in master. If you recall, if I scroll up, right now I'm in my feature branch. So I got to go back to my master, right? I'm here. Now I'm going to sync my master with the original's master. That's in the upstream remote. So I'm going to do git merge upstream slash master. Okay, so that's going to take the master branch from upstream, which is the original one, merge those changes, all those new commits, into my local master. Okay, now if I do git log, I have those commits, right? This is what we did. Style the footer, add footer, queue to quit. Now, this is all great, but it's not yet on GitHub. It's only in my local machine. If I go to GitHub, go back to my feature, to my copy, my fork. This is my fork. I still don't get the commits. If I click commits here, I don't get them. Why? Because we got to push, right? We got to push to origin. So I go back to VS Code. Gonna do git push origin master. And that will send synchronize, right? Everything that I have locally master will now go to GitHub in my fork, my copy. Now going back to GitHub, refresh, I can see my branch is up to date. And if I click commits, I will see them here now. So now we updated our fork on GitHub with our commits, and then that is now in sync with the original one. Okay, so you always want to make sure before you do any work that you synchronize everything. Otherwise, you're going to be behind, right? Because there's always people working on the original and adding new features. So that's why every time you're about to do any new work, always make sure to fetch and merge, which is also called pull. If you want to combine two, it's called a pull, git pull, before you do any work. Otherwise, be working on old stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. Let's simulate somebody changing the original and you don't have those changes. Let's go to the original here. This is my original repository and I have the permission to do it. So I'll use the Git web interface to change something. For example, I'm going to go to source. I'm going to go, let me see here. Before I do that, let's clean up the issues, right? Something I often forget. So if you notice going to the backlog and I refresh, it's being automatically moved to done. So that's why we always have that resolve hash in the description of the pull request. So it does this for us. Otherwise, we have to move it manually there. And you would have to click the issue and click to close it here. But because we had a resolve, it automatically does that for us. You can see here, the pull request was merged. The moment that happened, the issue is automatically closed and then automatically moved from in progress to done. Because of automation, we often forget that's even a thing, right? Anyway, let's move on. I was saying I wanted to simulate a change for somebody else. So let's say somebody else changed the file index and I'll click to edit here on GitHub. And let's say they added a paragraph here. Hello world. And I'm going to commit. Now I'm going to do directly to master, okay, just to simulate it. But usually we want to create a branch, feature branch, okay? Now I made a commit here. And this commit is only in the original. But we don't have in our copy. If I go back to my copy, let's see, this one. I look at the commits, it's not there. And you can see this branch is one commit behind. That means somebody else made a change to the original and now we're out of sync. So how do we sync that? Well, you can click this to sync. That's one way. Let me teach you how to do it manually through the command line. So in the local, every time you're going to start new work, right? And by the way, I should make sure to delete the local branch here with git branch -d because it's no longer needed. So git branch -d, add header to index. So it's gone to clean up locally as well. Okay, now we're here. We're gonna do what following. Want to make sure there's no new changes from upstream. So I'm gonna fetch upstream master. And I see there are some changes. So make sure you're in master. So I'm gonna do git merge upstream / master. Now I got the new change. Now I can start working on something new. And to update my GitHub copy, you got to do git push origin master. Okay. So it's if you're doing open source, it's a bit tedious because of this back and forth between your copy and the original, your copy and original. If you're working in a company, you don't have to do that. It's always directly changing your repository, the original, always. So that's why it's a bit more complicated. But let's see here. Just to try to make a picture of that. So let's say we have the original one. And that's the master branch. So we have a timeline. The repository is the original timeline. And then we got ours, our copy, our fork, master. This is basically our repository fork. Stack. So in a branch timeline, right, we have commits. So we would have a commit here, another one, and so on and so on. So mine is also in sync, right now. What I just did, what happened was somebody else came along and added a commit to the master from the original, but I don't have that. So what I want to do is bring that to mine. That's why I have to sync it. So, but to do that, you got to first do the, oops, the operations, right? You first got to, okay, you got to fetch all of these into my local. Once I got that, I can integrate with the merge. So I have it here. However, I need to send it to GitHub. That's why I got to push to GitHub. Right? And if you don't remember, you don't know what the heck is going on, just copy the commands down. Let me put in the Zoom chat. Basically git fetch upstream master, git merge upstream / master. Make sure you first git checkout master. Let me see. And then git push origin master. Those are the 4 commands you run to sync with the original and then push back to GitHub your copy. Always like that if you follow the pattern that we did. Let's see. Yeah, so let's do another one just so I can review with you. So, and by the way, I made some issues here to the repository, and you can actually go there and ask to do it for practice. I made it for you. So if you're interested in doing that after lecture, that's the link. You can go there and pick one of them. If there's none of them anymore, I'll create one for you. But basically, you go there. Let's do an easy one. This one. Wrap the main content for the next page. Remember, first comment, hey, let me help you with this. And then as the maintainer will look at that. Okay, you're being assigned to that. Now you can start working, but don't do before you do work. You get assigned. Okay, I'm assigned. Let me look at the board. I'm gonna add to the board. And I'm gonna put in progress. I already have the code, right? I cloned it, my copy, my fork, right? I went to code, I click fork. So I got my fork here and I have everything. So I clone it going here. So I have it in my local machine. After doing that, I go to my local here. Let me make sure I'm in the right place. I'm in the master branch. First, I want to make sure I'm in master. I want to make sure I'm in sync with the original before I do any work. So git fetch from the upstream master, and then I'm gonna merge from the upstream slash master. Be careful of that slash, okay? And the reason for this is the name of a branch as one thing. And this one is our as the name of the remote and the branch name. And then we're gonna do, okay, locally we are in sync. We can start git check out a new feature branch. And this one is for, let me look at the issue again before I forget. I don't want AI to mislead me again. That's for the main, wrap the main content of index. Okay. Uh, index main content. We are now in a new feature branch. I can start doing my commits, my work. So I'm gonna do to index, and I think I wanna move all this stuff to inside a main tag. So I'm gonna go here, add a main. This is just a semantic tag that it's meant for the main content of things. But in truth, HTML can use divs for everything, but they try to be semantic these days so the computer can better understand the web page's content. So add the closing tag there. So everything is now between the open main and the closing main. So that's the problem we're solving right now to better organize our page. Great, now let's do the commit. I'll do it graphically again so you understand how to do it. VS Code, you can go here. I can verify, okay, I added main. Everything's been moved inside. I'm gonna click plus to git add. I'm gonna verify again, all good. And I'm gonna write my commit message, enclose main content of index page in main tag. Click commit. Great. I might have noticed VS Code has this publish branch feature that you can use to actually run the git push for you. But be careful, I don't know which remote is gonna go. So we wanna do origin first because origin is our copy. So let me try, let me just try, what is it gonna do? Oh, it's gonna ask which one you wanna do. Okay, so I wanna git push to origin. So I'm gonna pick origin. So it just did the git push origin index main content, the name of the branch. Now let's look at GitHub. And you can go to your copy and look at the branches to see that it's there, just to verify. And you're also going to see this yellow banner. Let me try to show you how to do it manually through pull request. Let's see. If you click new pull requests here, you can try from the right to left. I want my feature branch from my copy. That's correct. And into master. Yeah, of the original. Yes. And you can verify your changes here. Looks good. Create pull request. Let's describe the title. Enclose main content index page main tag. That looks good. Let me say in the description resolve hash number 8, right? That's the name. In practice, it's going to be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of issues. So you might want to reference, go back to that issue page and copy the number because you might not know right away. Okay, I think I'll use this one. And then I enclose the main content of the index page inside a main tag. As I understand, the footer should not be part of the main content, so I left that out side. And then I would put some screenshots here, maybe, but it's visually is not it's the same thing, so it's kind of not so useful, right? But anyway, I think that looks great. In case anything goes wrong, just roll back the commit. Pretty much go back in time to Git history and deploy that again. Create pull request, and then if you're working a company, you would ask in a chat or, hey, could you review my pull request? Here's the link. If you're in the open source setting, they'll get a notification saying a new pull request was created, and then the maintainer would go and somebody would be assigned to review, maybe probably themselves. And then they would look at here from the point of view of the reviewer. They would read descriptions. Okay, this is the issue. Maybe they're confused. They're going to look at the issue. Oh, okay, makes sense. And look at the files changed. Good. And if they have any questions, they would comment here. Otherwise, they just approve. Click review changes, approve. Okay, that's what we typically do. We'd go review changes, mark approve, submit review, or otherwise you would have to comment and ask them to change something. Now, GitHub doesn't let you approve your own thing. That's why it doesn't let me. So usually when we do code reviews, you always ask somebody else to do it, not yourself. Of course, you can break the rules if you're working a startup, which is fast-paced. You can break the rules, but typically in a big company, you have to have somebody else review for you. Okay, looks good. Let's say the person review and approved. And then again, it would deploy and then verify everything is okay, no issues. And then I am the maintainer. I will merge. And then you can start cleaning up again. Delete the branch. And then we're going to go to our local and sync. We are here. Let's go git checkout master. Let's pull from the original. So let me teach you pull, actually. Somebody might be asking, what is git pull? That's the combination of fetch and push. So I can do that git pull from upstream master. That's gonna do the fetch and the merge. Sorry, I didn't mean push. It's fetch and merge, okay? Not push, sorry. So that we did fetch and merge at the same time. Now with that, I can finally push to my origin master so that my copy is updated on GitHub. And then finally, I can clean up my issue. Oops, let me first delete my branch here because I think I have a branch. Branch dash D to delete, index main content. Oops, there you go, git branch again. Looks good. Let's go to GitHub, clean up the issues. It's automatically done for us due to automation, but you just want to double check. Okay, go to the issue and make sure it's closed. Okay, otherwise you got to go to the bottom and click here and close. Let me show you. If it were not closed, you would have to click close here. And then you have to go to the board, which is a separate thing. And it would have to move from in progress to done. Like that. Due to automation, this automation happens because of the resolve that we put in the description. So that's why you should always do that. And it will move everything to done for us. And that's it. So you can just keep doing this. Of course, this process is more involved for open source, but if you're working in a company, it'll be a lot easier because you don't have to do your fork and you don't have to be syncing all the time. But you still do have to sync with the latest commits because there'll be people adding new features all the time to the code base. So you still got to fetch and merge or git pull the latest changes from the master branch. Okay, and with that, I end this lecture.